The old truck rattled down the dirt road, kicking up a plume of dust that coated the already parched summer fields. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, a knot forming in my stomach. Today was the day I met Sarah, my son Mark's fiancée. Mark had been living in the city for years, building his career, and I'd always respected that. But he was bringing a piece of that city life right here, to my family farm in rural Ohio, and I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. We rounded the final bend, and the farmhouse with its peeling paint and a porch swing that had seen better days came into view. Next to it stood the old barn, a proud, weathered structure that had housed generations of livestock and held countless memories. It wasn't fancy, but it was real, honest. As I pulled up, Mark's sleek black sedan was already parked, looking out of place beside my rusty pickup. He got out, a wide grin on his face, and opened the passenger door for Sarah. She stepped out, all designer clothes and polished nails, a stark contrast to the worn boots and faded jeans that were my daily uniform. Her eyes, wide and assessing, swept over the farm, lingering on the barn. I saw her nose wrinkle almost imperceptibly as she took a deep breath of the country air. The air I breathed every day, heavy with the scent of hay, rich earth, and yes, a faint whiff of the dairy cows in the distant pasture. Mark put an arm around her, beaming. "Dad, this is Sarah. Sarah, this is my father, Robert." She offered a polite but somewhat stiff smile. "It's lovely to finally meet you, Robert." Then her gaze returned to the barn, and I heard the words, sharp and clear, that would sting for a long time. "My goodness, this place smells like cow." It wasn't a question. It was a judgment. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't going to be easy. The summer sun beat down, but I felt a chill. This was more than just a difference in scent. It was a clash of worlds. If you're enjoying this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single chapter of "My daughter-in-law said this place smells like cow. Now she begs to rent my barn for her events." The engagement dinner was an awkward affair. Mark, bless his heart, tried his best to bridge the chasm between Sarah's urban sensibilities and our rural reality. He talked about his work, about their life in the city, while Sarah picked at her homemade apple pie, complimenting it politely but leaving most of it untouched. My sister Martha, who'd helped me prepare, shot me sympathetic glances from across the table. She understood. Sarah spent most of the evening on her phone, occasionally looking up to offer a vague smile or a brief, non-committal answer when spoken to directly. She asked no questions about the farm, about my life, or about the history of the land that had sustained my family for generations. It was clear she saw this visit as a necessary formality, a box to tick before her future could truly begin. The air was thick with unspoken observations, a silent understanding that our worlds were miles apart. After dinner, Mark tried to show her around the barn, thinking she might appreciate the sheer scale of the old structure, or perhaps the antique farm equipment stored inside. But she recoiled slightly at the dusty air, politely declined to venture further than the entrance, and pulled out a small bottle of hand sanitizer from her purse, vigorously cleaning her hands. "It's very rustic," she commented, her tone betraying a clear distaste. I watched her, a pang of sadness mixed with a growing sense of resignation. Mark, always trying to find common ground, mentioned the upcoming wedding plans. "We're thinking of a big hotel ballroom in the city," Sarah interjected, her eyes lighting up for the first time that evening. "Something elegant with crystal chandeliers, definitely no hay bales in sight." I just nodded, a forced smile on my face. It was obvious I and my farm weren't part of her vision of elegance. The wedding came and went, a blur of city lights, unfamiliar faces, and polite, superficial conversations. I wore my best suit, feeling like a stranger in my own skin, surrounded by opulence I couldn't comprehend. Sarah looked stunning, a vision in white, and Mark was clearly madly in love. That much was undeniable. He glowed with happiness, and I genuinely wanted that for him. Yet, a subtle distance grew between us after the wedding. Mark called less. His visits became rarer, and when he did come, Sarah rarely accompanied him. He'd make excuses, citing her busy schedule or their social commitments. I understood to a degree. Their lives were different now, intertwined with the fast pace of the city, but it still hurt, this slow drifting apart from my only son. The farm felt quieter, the porch swing creaked with only my weight, and the barn stood, a silent sentinel, witnessing my solitude. One autumn afternoon, while mending a fence, I overheard a conversation between Mark and my sister Martha, who was visiting. Martha was gently probing, asking why Sarah never came to the farm anymore. She doesn't get it, Aunt Martha," Mark sighed, his voice low. "She doesn't see the beauty in it. She sees dirt and work and the smell of cows. She thinks it's primitive." I straightened up, my heart sinking. It wasn't just Sarah's initial impression. It was a deeper, fundamental difference that was now creating a wedge between Mark and me. The farm wasn't just a place to me. It was my heritage, my lifeblood. To hear it dismissed so casually, even indirectly, felt like a rejection of a part of myself. The gap between us seemed to widen with every passing month. 2 years passed. 2 years of fleeting visits, clipped phone calls, and the lingering sense that I was losing my son to a world I didn't understand. Then a call came that surprised me. It was Mark, and his voice held a hint of urgency. "Dad, we need to talk. Can you come to the city next week?" It was unusual for him to ask me to come to them. Usually I was the one making the journey, driving my old truck through hours of highway to get a glimpse of their city life. When I arrived at their sleek apartment, the air was tense. Sarah was there, looking uncharacteristically subdued. Mark started, his hands clasped. "Dad, Sarah lost her job. The marketing firm she worked for downsized, and she was one of the first to go." Sarah nodded, her eyes downcast. "And, well, we're struggling. The city is expensive and my savings won't last forever." Then Mark dropped the bomb. "Sarah's always talked about starting her own event planning business. She's got the talent, the connections. But we need a space, a unique space that doesn't cost a fortune. Something rustic chic, as she calls it." My heart began to pound. I had a feeling where this was going. Sarah finally looked up, her gaze tentative. "I've been looking at venues, Robert, and they're all so generic, so expensive. And then I remembered your barn." She paused, took a deep breath. "It has character. It has charm. It's exactly the kind of blank canvas I need." She looked at me, her eyes pleading. "I know what I said before. It was thoughtless, but would you consider letting me use your barn? I'd pay rent, of course. I'd make it something incredible." The words, "This place smells like cow," echoed in my mind. The irony was almost unbearable. But then I saw the genuine vulnerability in her eyes, the desperate hope. And for the first time, I saw her as more than just Mark's city wife. I saw her as a young woman facing a real struggle. If you're finding yourself invested in Robert's journey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more chapters of My Daughter-in-Law Said This Place Smells Like Cow. Now, she begs to rent my barn for her events. I didn't give her an immediate answer. I told them I needed to think about it, to weigh the pros and cons. Truth be told, I was still reeling from the sudden shift in Sarah's perspective. The barn, which she had so casually dismissed, was now her lifeline. It felt like a strange twist of fate, almost poetic. As I drove back to the farm, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the fields, and the old barn loomed large, almost like it was waiting for my decision. Over the next few days, I walked around the barn, running my hand over the weathered wood, remembering the countless hours I'd spent in it. It was more than just a structure. It was a part of me, a living testament to my family's history. Could I really let someone who had shown such disdain for it before now transform it for their own purposes? The thought gnawed at me. Martha came over for coffee, and I told her about Sarah's proposal. She listened patiently, stirring her mug. "It's a lot to ask, Robert," she said, her voice soft. "But it's also a chance for Mark to be closer, a chance for you to see your son more often. And maybe, just maybe, a chance for Sarah to see what this place truly means." Her words resonated with me. I wasn't just considering Sarah. I was considering my relationship with Mark. I called them the next morning. "Okay," I said, my voice gruff but firm. "We can try it. But we need to set some ground rules. This is still a working farm and we'll need to work around the farm schedule. And you'll need to respect the space. Sarah's voice, when she responded, was filled with genuine relief and gratitude. Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much. I promise you won't regret it. I hung up the phone, a cautious sense of hope blooming in my chest. This could either be a disaster or a new beginning. The transformation began slowly, then picked up pace. Sarah, armed with mood boards and fabric swatches, arrived with a small team of enthusiastic young people. They were initially apprehensive about the dust and the lingering farm scents, but Sarah, surprisingly, took charge. She didn't flinch. She was focused, driven, and utterly professional. They started with a deep clean, something the barn hadn't seen in decades. Cobwebs were swept, ancient dust motes banished, and the old wooden beams, once obscured, began to show their rich, dark grain. Sarah had a vision, to combine the rustic charm of the barn with elegant, modern touches. She brought in string lights that crisscrossed the vast space, creating a warm, inviting glow. Vintage furniture was carefully arranged, and local florists were hired to fill the barn with vibrant, natural arrangements. I watched, fascinated, as the barn slowly shed its old skin and began to emerge as something new. The earthy smell of hay and animal feed gradually receded, replaced by the subtle scent of fresh paint and polished wood, and a hint of the fragrant flowers Sarah brought in. Sarah herself spent hours there, sketching, directing, even getting her hands dirty. She started asking me questions about the barn's history, about the types of wood used, about the best way to ventilate the space. It wasn't just business. There was a genuine curiosity, a desire to understand. One afternoon, I found her standing in the center of the barn, looking up at the high ceiling, a thoughtful expression on her face. "It's got such good bones, Robert," she said, almost to herself. "So much character. I can see why you love it." A small smile touched my lips. The barn, my barn, was starting to work its magic. The first event was a small, intimate wedding rehearsal dinner. I hovered in the background, a nervous observer, unsure of what to expect. But as guests arrived, dressed in their finest, their faces lit up with surprise and delight. They complimented the unique ambience, the string lights, the rustic elegance. Sarah, in her element, moved gracefully among them, confident and radiant. I watched her interact with the clients, with the vendors, with Mark, who had started to help out more and more, chauffeuring supplies and offering a steady hand. He seemed proud of her and genuinely happy to be involved. As the evening progressed, I saw Sarah laugh, a genuine, unrestrained sound that I hadn't heard from her before. She was no longer the reserved, city-bound woman who had first arrived. The barn, in some subtle way, was drawing her out. Toward the end of the night, when most of the guests had left, Sarah approached me. She looked tired but exhilarated. "It was a success, Robert," she said, her voice full of relief. "They loved it." She paused, then her eyes met mine, earnest and sincere. "And thank you, truly. This barn, it's more than just a venue. It feels like a part of something real, something authentic." Then she did something that completely disarmed me. She reached out and gently squeezed my arm. "And," she added, her voice softer, "it doesn't smell like cow anymore. Or if it does, it's a good kind of smell now, a homey kind." The words, so different from her initial impression, warmed me to the core. It wasn't just the barn that was transforming, it was our relationship. A small but significant breakthrough had occurred. If you're still with Robert on this incredible journey, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the exciting conclusion of "My daughter-in-law said, 'This place smells like cow. Now she begs to rent my barn for her events.'" Sarah's business flourished. Word spread quickly about the unique barn venue, and soon her calendar was booked solid with events, weddings, corporate retreats, art shows. The farm, once a quiet, solitary place for me, was now buzzing with activity. Delivery trucks came and went. Florists unloaded arrangements and caterers set up elaborate buffets. I found myself increasingly involved. I'd help with parking, ensure the old electrical system could handle the extra load, and sometimes I'd just sit on my porch watching the vibrant scene unfold, a proud smile on my face. Mark was often there too, becoming an indispensable part of Sarah's team, handling logistics and even doing some of the heavy lifting. He seemed happier, more engaged, his city life now intertwined with the rhythm of the farm. Sarah, once so distant, started asking me for advice on practical matters, from where to source local produce for events to how to deal with an unexpected summer storm. She listened intently, valuing my experience and my knowledge of the land. We'd sit on the porch swing after a long day, sipping iced tea, talking about everything and nothing. She'd share stories about her city life, and I'd tell her about the farm, its history and the challenges of farming. One particularly busy Saturday, a pipe burst in the barn, threatening to derail a major event. Without hesitation, I dropped what I was doing, grabbed my tools and fixed it, all while Sarah calmly rerouted guests and managed the crisis. When it was done, she looked at me, her eyes shining with admiration. "You're a lifesaver, Robert," she said, her voice heartfelt. "I couldn't do this without you." In that moment, the old resentments faded away completely, replaced by a deep mutual respect. The barn became more than just a venue, it became a hub for the community. Sarah made an effort to work with local vendors, the florist from the next town over, the baker down the road, the organic vegetable farmer from whom I bought produce. She actively promoted their businesses, bringing new life and revenue to our small rural area. I saw firsthand how her vision, once so urban-centric, was now deeply connected to the land and the people around it. Mark and Sarah decided to move closer, renting a small house just a few miles from the farm. Their city apartment, once a symbol of their independent life, now felt too far from their thriving business and the community they were building here. Their visits became daily occurrences, whether to discuss upcoming events or simply to share a meal. My relationship with Mark blossomed, rekindled by our shared involvement in Sarah's venture. We talked for hours, catching up on years of lost time, rebuilding the bond that had frayed. Sarah, too, changed. The polished nails were still there, but now they often had a smudge of dirt or paint from setting up an event. Her designer clothes were occasionally replaced by comfortable jeans and a work shirt. She learned to appreciate the quiet mornings, the scent of the rain on fresh earth, and even the distant lowing of the cows. She started to see the beauty in the rustic, not as something to be tolerated, but as something to be celebrated. One evening, as the sun set over the barn, casting it in a golden glow, I found Sarah sitting on a hay bale inside, sketching in a notebook. "You know, Robert," she said, looking up, a soft smile on her face, "I used to think that beauty only existed in perfectly curated spaces, but this place, it has a soul, it's real, and that's something you can't buy." Her words, simple yet profound, showed how far she had truly come. Years continued to pass, bringing with them countless sunrises and sunsets over the Ohio farmland. The barn, once a humble structure, grew in stature and reputation, becoming a cherished landmark, known far and wide for its unique charm and the beautiful, heartfelt events it hosted. Sarah's business didn't just survive, it thrived, becoming a cornerstone of local commerce. It created jobs not only for her immediate team, but also for a network of local artisans, caterers, and service providers, bringing a renewed sense of vibrancy and economic stability to our small rural community. The initial disdain Sarah felt for the farm's very essence had long since transformed into a deep respect, even a profound love, for the land and the authentic life it represented. The smell of cow, once a symbol of her discomfort, was no longer a negative. It was simply a natural, expected part of the authentic rural experience that her clients now actively sought out and appreciated. The greatest joy, however, came with new life. Mark and Sarah had their first child, a little girl with bright, curious eyes whom they named Lily. She instantly became the light of our lives. Lily loved coming to the farm, her infectious giggles echoing as she chased the chickens across the yard or stood at a respectful distance, wide-eyed, watching the cows graze in the pasture. I often found myself pushing her on the old porch swing, its familiar creak a comforting soundtrack to her childish delight. It was the same swing I'd sat on feeling alone and isolated just a few years earlier, wrestling with the changes that had come into my life. Now it was filled with the laughter of my granddaughter, a testament to the unexpected, beautiful path my life had taken, a path that had led to this incredible reunited family. One crisp autumn day, the air smelling of fallen leaves and wood smoke, after a particularly successful event that had just concluded in the barn, Sarah stood beside me. She looked out at the structure, now adorned with the remnants of twinkling lights and the last vestiges of a joyous celebration. Her voice, soft but firm with conviction, broke the comfortable silence. "Robert," she began, turning to face me, "I want to formalize this. I want to buy the barn from you, not the whole farm," she quickly clarified, sensing my apprehension. "Just the barn and the surrounding land necessary for the business. I want to invest in it, to make it a permanent legacy for Lily, for our family. A place that will continue to host happiness for generations." I looked at her, at my son Mark standing proudly beside her, a mirror of my own quiet pride, and then back at the old barn that had stood witness to so many changes, so much growth. It wasn't about the money, it was about something far more profound. It was about the connection, the healing of old wounds, the unexpected forging of a new family bond that transcended the simple transaction of property. My daughter-in-law, who had once recoiled from the very essence of my home, who had judged its scent and dismissed its rustic charm, now begged to make it her own, to cherish it, to build a future upon its strong old bones. "It's yours, Sarah," I said, a lump forming in my throat, my voice thick with emotion. "It's always been yours, in a way. You just needed to see it." And in that moment, the barn, once a symbol of division and misunderstanding between us, had truly become the beating heart of our reunited family. This story has come to an end, but if you've enjoyed following Robert's journey and Sarah's transformation, please remember to subscribe to the channel for more compelling and realistic narratives.